Welcome back to Reddit Untold, where the pettiest revenge and the most satisfying payback stories on the entire internet come to life. I have got a whole stack of them for you today, the kind where someone pushed the wrong person one too many times and paid for it in ways they never saw coming. And before we dive in, do me one quick favor. If you enjoy stories like these, tap that subscribe button right now. It is completely free, it takes 1 second, and it genuinely helps this channel grow more than you could imagine. Seriously, hit subscribe, and you will never miss a new batch. Now, get comfortable, and let us get into it. This was posted to our /bad bosses. You know those Employee of the Month awards? Where you've got a poster child for excellence and everyone's rooting them on. Yeah, well, that was my department literally. I went by Brianna, but let's just say this is one name people won't forget. It all started when we had our first Employee of the Month announcement. Everyone was talking about how much Brianna had been slaving away. She'd turned in some impressive data reports and helped with a big client pitch, so they all thought she deserved it, but not me. See, I'm a guy who believes in fair play and revenge, you could say. Brianna was the head of marketing at our tech company, Big Hustle Incorporated, and boy, did she make my life miserable. She was always trying to one-up me, whether it was with fancy office snacks or clever email subject lines that made my inbox look like spam. I knew if she won, the spotlight would be on her, and everyone would forget about me. So, I hatched a plan. The setup? Simple enough. Sabotage every single nomination Brianna got, while ensuring mine looked stellar. The execution? A bit trickier. First up was the monthly team survey, where people rated their coworkers' performance. I made sure to always give her low scores for initiative and team spirit. One time, I even submitted a fake email from someone in HR saying she'd been spotted gossiping about the boss's personal life during the lunch break. Brianna was livid but couldn't prove anything. Then came the end-of-month report cards. I would write glowing comments for myself, but for Brianna, I'd throw in phrases like needs improvement and could be more proactive. Of course, she found out. That's why, next time, when it was her turn to rate me, she went all out, putting down everything except the bare minimum. But here's the kicker. Even with all this sabotage, Brianna still ended up being chosen for Employee of the Month. At least in my department. The HR team said they needed to pick someone who had shown exceptional leadership qualities and contributions across the board. And that's when I decided I'd take it a step further. I started spreading whispers around the office that Brianna's latest project was failing spectacularly. Turning out to be BS, of course, but enough to keep people guessing. Meanwhile, I quietly pulled together all our best reports and made sure they were in tip-top shape. At the final announcement meeting, everyone was on tenterhooks. When HR announced me as the winner, there was a collective gasp. Brianna had been so close. She even tried to make a joke about it before storming out of the room in a huff. The rest? Well, they were all just happy I'd won for once. Afterwards, one of my coworkers sent me a message saying how impressed he was that I'd managed to pull off something so smoothly. To which I replied, sometimes you gotta get your hands dirty to ensure you stay on top. Let me know in the comments if you would have done the same. This was posted to our /nuclear revenge. Listen up, folks. I might have just hit the jackpot of revenge stories. And if you think I'm going to let someone else get away with this one, think again. So buckle up, it's a wild ride. Let me set the scene. I work in a mid-sized tech firm called Quantum Dynamics as a software engineer, Charlie. My coworkers are named Sarah, Mike, and Lisa. Yeah, they all have mundane first names just like in any other workplace. Now, you're probably wondering why I would even consider doing something so unconventional, but let me take it from the top. Sarah was my direct supervisor, and she had a bit of a temper. If you crossed her, she would sick Mike and Lisa on you with ease. They were the enforcers, ready to make your life a living hell. One day, Sarah made the mistake of giving me a demerit for not completing a task by 5 p.m. That's when my patience ran out. I didn't care about office politics or staying under her radar. This was personal. The moment was fateful and fraught with tension. It was just after lunch break, and the office buzzed with chatter as usual. Sarah had just called me into her office, and that was the last straw. She accused me of messing up a project milestone, which I vehemently denied. The meeting ended in an argument, and she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. That night, I couldn't shake off the feeling of injustice. As I walked to my car, I decided there had to be a way to make Sarah pay for screwing with me like that. After mulling it over, I hit upon a plan involving some tech and a bit of know-how. The next day, I snuck into her office when everyone else was out on lunch break. It was a small risk, but the potential payoff was too good to ignore. The portable laser cutter in my backpack was the perfect weapon, small enough to avoid suspicion, yet powerful enough to do its job. I turned on the device and aimed it at Sarah's files. She had stacks of papers filled with project reports, financial records, and memos. As I fired up the cutter, a small beam shot out, slicing through the documents with ease. The laser was set just right. It vaporized them without causing any real damage to the room. I worked methodically, ensuring every file was taken care of. It took me about an hour, and when I finished, Sarah's office looked exactly as if it had been hit by a natural disaster. Papers lay everywhere, burned into nothing but ash or small fragments. I left quickly, making sure to clean up any evidence. The next day, Sarah walked in, her eyes wide with shock. She couldn't put two and two together at first, but when she saw the state of her office, it hit home. The room was a mess, and every trace of those files was gone. Her reaction was priceless. She demanded answers from everyone, suspecting Mike and Lisa as usual. The aftermath was hilarious. Sarah tried to blame me, but there wasn't any proof except for the charred remains she found in her trash can. I spent the next few days deflecting questions, making sure no one else caught wind of my little project. It turned out to be a brilliant move because it kept everyone thinking Sarah was going crazy. As the days passed, people started whispering about a mysterious laser cutter and the missing documents. Sarah's behavior became increasingly erratic. She lost her edge at work, and her personal life suffered as well. She even got into an argument with Mike and Lisa over the mess, which made their lives miserable too. In the end, Sarah quit on her own after realizing that staying in a job with such an incompetent boss was more trouble than it was worth. As for me, I went about my business without looking back. After all, sometimes a bit of vaporized office paper is just what you need to level the playing field. Let me know in the comments if you would have done the same. This was posted to our /pro revenge. It started a few weeks ago at our firm, a mid-sized consulting company called Alpha Solutions. I'll call my boss Mark Jenkins if you must know. He's been around since day one and has always held the position of senior consultant despite not having the best work ethic. For months, we've had to deal with his constant griping about everything from the office coffee to how he's underpaid. Every project he takes on seems to be delayed due to his unprofessionalism. It's been an uphill battle for everyone, and I've seen it get to a few of my coworkers who've just taken a back seat in their efforts. One day, during our morning stand-up meeting, Mark announced that the firm was considering bringing in some external consultants for a high-profile project. This was more than a little frustrating because we were all working hard on internal projects and had no idea when this new work might come through. That's when I decided something needed to happen. It wasn't about ruining his career. It was just about making him understand the impact of his behavior on us, the team. I knew he wouldn't take kindly to being publicly humiliated, so I decided a more subtle approach would be best. On Friday afternoon, after we left the meeting, I went to our little kitchen area and found a box of flowers for $40 at the office supply store. They were those fancy, colorful ones that look like they're made out of paper. Expensive, but not enough to cause any serious harm. My plan was simple. I would wait until Mark had his usual afternoon coffee break in the break room, slip one into his cup without him noticing, and make sure he wouldn't be able to remove it. Sure enough, on Monday morning, I saw Mark taking a sip from his coffee with that satisfied look on his face. A minute later, his eyes widened as he tasted something strange and started coughing violently. He looked around in confusion before spitting out the flower and shouting for help. Everyone rushed over to see what was happening. I pretended not to know anything until Mark got up to go to the restroom. It took him several minutes of coughing and spluttering in there, but eventually, he came back out looking green as a plant. I had to stifle my laughter as the other coworkers asked if everyone knew about this incident or if it was just Mark's imagination playing tricks on him. The next day, word started spreading quickly through email chains and water cooler gossip that someone had played a mean trick on our overworked boss, and I felt a sense of satisfaction mixed with guilt. The aftermath: Mark tried to pin the incident on one of his employees who he suspected might be behind it. He went on and on about how he needed to establish stricter security measures in the office, but was too busy playing detective that no one could get any work done for days. I didn't really mind since my focus had shifted anyway. A few weeks later, during a team meeting where Mark talked about the need for better communication, I raised my hand and said, "Isn't it possible this incident happened because of the stress on everyone? Maybe taking some steps to improve morale would be more effective than punishing individuals." The room fell silent as we all processed what I just implied. Sighing, Mark nodded and muttered something about improving team dynamics. It felt good, knowing that my small act had pushed him to reconsider his management style. Let me know in the comments if you would have done the same. This was posted to our /nuclear revenge. Let me start by setting up this one, folks, because you can't beat a guy who gets screwed over twice. First off, I'm going to be honest here. My name is Sam. I have been working at New Tech Innovations for the last 3 years as a project manager. If you ever worked in tech and thought your job was stressful before, you haven't seen anything yet. But that's not what this is about. This is about something else entirely. You see, my boss, let's call him Bobo, was more than just demanding. He practically lived at work. His office was a shrine to his own importance. Glass walls, leather chairs, and a view of the entire floor from above. It seemed like everyone knew when they entered that office who really called the shots here. Now, every employee has their grievances, right? But mine? Well, let's just say Bobo had this weird obsession with micromanaging everything. From how long you take on the toilet to the exact hours you leave work. It was relentless and suffocating. And there was that one time he actually made me work a double shift because his personal plans ran into something. I left at 9:30 p.m., but no sooner had my car pulled out of the parking lot than Bobo was on my ass for leaving early. So yeah, one night after yet another all-nighter, I figured enough was enough. I mean, I wasn't exactly a spy or anything. Just someone who loved his freedom and couldn't take any more of this. I went to the tech store downtown, bought some basic hidden cameras, and went back to work with a plan. The first step was simple, placing the camera under Bobo's desk. I waited until he was in a meeting and slipped it in place when no one was looking. Then, I did another behind his chair. The whole thing took me about 30 minutes. Easy peasy. I set up everything to record all day, but not until after normal office hours, so they'd get the best of Bobo's private moments too, you know? The next morning when everyone started coming in, I knew something was off because Bobo acted strangely. He had this weird paranoia about being watched or recorded, but he never admitted it. Instead, he just got even more stressed out. Weeks went by, and I didn't do anything with the footage. Just kept it on a secure hard drive at home. Until one day, after seeing yet another all-nighter slip through my fingers because Bobo was micromonitoring everything, every second, I knew what I needed to do. So, I sat down in front of his desk and composed an email titled Project Manager Review, then sent it to him. In the email, I laid out all the ways he was stifling innovation at New Tech, how his micromanagement was hurting productivity, and that if nothing changed, I would be looking for other opportunities. Of course, Bobo read the email and thought it was just a fluke. But then, one day I got an unexpected visit from HR. They said there had been a security breach in the company's surveillance system, and my cameras were found. Bobo called me into his office, demanding to know what this was about. I told him bluntly that he'd been caught on camera using our own systems to spy on employees, and that would never fly. I laid out all the evidence in a calm, unemotional tone. No grandstanding, just facts. Bobo denied everything at first, but then saw his screen light up with the footage of him on camera. It was like something out of a movie. I didn't laugh or anything. I kept it composed. Finally, he caved and admitted to some of what he had done. He resigned that day and took a hefty severance package. But the kicker? We got the cameras back from his office. And just before they left, HR gave me a bonus for uncovering this violation of company policy. I walked away with enough money in my pocket to finally move out of my parents' basement. And who knows where that might take me. So there you go, my version of revenge against someone who thought he could boss people around at will. Let me know in the comments if you would have done the same. Real quick, if you're enjoying this, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. It's free and it helps a ton. Okay, back to it. This was posted to our /bad bosses. If you've ever felt like giving your coworkers some payback for their less than stellar behavior, read on because I did just that. So, let me set the scene. I worked at a mid-sized tech firm called Innovate Tech, and one of my coworkers, Jack, was a real piece of work. He was always late with his reports, complained about everything from the coffee to the air conditioning, and was generally a liability. But here's what really got under my skin. He would often come into the office cafe during breaks, spend his time chatting up other employees, but never buy anything for himself. I decided enough was enough. My plan wasn't just to get him back. I wanted some serious payback. The idea came when we realized that our company was using a pretty basic POS system that had only minimal security measures against skimmers. So, after carefully considering the best time to do this, I got my hands on a cheap and simple credit card skimmer from an online store. It wasn't fancy or covert. It looked like any other small device you'd find in a coffee machine. I installed the skimmer during Jack's shift one day when he was late for work. That way, he would be more likely to use the cafe as soon as he got there, right? As I slipped the skimmer under his favorite espresso machine, I could feel my resolve solidifying. The setup couldn't have been cleaner. That evening, after Jack had left the office, I posted a comment on the internal bulletin board. Hey everyone, just wanted to warn you that some of our coffee machines might be compromised and to be extra cautious with your card details. Knowing Jack's typical behavior, I had a feeling he would come in at his usual time, late, complaining, and eager for his caffeine fix. And sure enough, the next day, Jack walked into the cafe looking like he always did. He went straight up to our favorite machine and started making his usual latte, that same one he ordered every single day. Within seconds of him swiping his card, I heard an almost imperceptible sound, click, click, and felt a small jolt through my hand from where the skimmer was hidden behind the machine. After Jack left with his drink, I waited until it was time to clear out our area. Carefully, I removed the skimmer without making any noise and threw it away in the dumpster outside. Back at my desk, I watched as all eyes turned toward Jack when someone mentioned the coffee machine. It wasn't a direct accusation. Everyone just seemed more on edge, wary of him. Fast forward to the following weeks. Nothing happened for a while. But then one day, our finance department sent out an alert. Apparently, there had been unusual spending patterns on some cards used near that exact time and machine. And who do we find suspected? Jack, of course. The irony was not lost on me as I watched him being grilled by HR about his activities during the break. He was completely caught off guard, denying any wrongdoing while muttering about needing coffee for his high-stress job. Little did he know that I had set this up. In the end, they never found enough evidence to charge Jack with anything more than a warning and a stern lecture on the importance of security procedures. But hey, it was a small victory for me. Just imagine how satisfied I felt when all those coffee runs turned out to have been a waste of his time and money. Payback is sweet. Let me know in the comments if you would have done the same. This was posted to our /pro-revenge. This subreddit is a breeding ground for those who've had it with their entitled coworkers, neighbors, or anyone they believe has wronged them in any way. It's where you find people plotting elaborate revenge schemes that are so satisfyingly vindictive, they'll make your jaw drop. I was working at Megacorp Tech Incorporated, and let me just say, our management team could be a little, let's call it too cozy with one another. It wasn't exactly the everybody in this company has each other's back kind of place. More like, they were all elbowing each other for bigger corners and better bonuses. One day, I had enough. You see, our vice president, Bob, was notorious for his endless bragging sessions at lunch. He'd talk about his latest vacation or his new sports car as if he owned the company. Well, everyone knew that wasn't true. He was just the number 2 guy, and we were all pulling the real weight. Anyway, during one of our team meetings, Bob went on and on about how he wanted to be CEO soon, because he's been working his ass off. I didn't say anything at the time, but the thought stayed with me. A week later, I decided to do something about it. I ordered a few remote-controlled toy pigs from an online store. They were these cute little animals that made funny sounds and could move on a string. The idea hit me like a ton of bricks. I would make them attack our meeting. I figured if we could get Bob's attention, he'd shut up for once. So, I slipped the toys into my bag just before the meeting started. When everyone was gathered around the table, I casually placed these so-called decorations on the floor. The moment the first pig moved, chaos erupted. Everyone was laughing and pointing, trying to figure out where it came from. Bob, of course, didn't get the joke at all. He looked genuinely confused until one of his team members pointed out that a toy pig had been set loose in the middle of our meeting. The other pigs followed suit, moving around the table and making noise. I had to fight back my laughter as Bob got more agitated. "Is this some kind of prank?" he asked. "Who did this?" I didn't respond, but the look on his face was priceless. He was now the center of attention, definitely not what he wanted during a serious meeting. The pigs kept moving and making sounds until one of them actually knocked over Bob's water glass. The room went silent for a moment as everyone looked at me expectantly. I maintained my poker face, trying to act like it was just an accident. But when Bob glared at me with such pure rage, I couldn't help but smirk inside. "Who did this?" he demanded again. "Ignore him," one of the other team members said. "He's always being dramatic." But that only fueled Bob's fury. He stood up and started pacing around the table, muttering to himself about how he was going to deal with whoever was behind this. After a few minutes, the meeting finally adjourned. As everyone filed out of the room, I heard Bob say something under his breath. "They're going down." I grinned at that, but kept walking without reacting. The plan worked perfectly. Bob shut up about his future plans for weeks after that. And to this day, no one has any idea who did it, which makes it even more satisfying. It's the kind of subtle revenge that leaves a lasting impression and doesn't leave anyone questioning your sanity or motives. Let me know in the comments if you would have done the same. This was posted to our /badbosses. Alright, bear with me. Let's take a trip down memory lane to 2018 when I was a junior software developer at Widget Corp. Our boss, Bob, was not just a micromanager. He was the worst kind of overbearing leader who would stand in your way whenever you try to make progress. His constant scrutiny and petty criticisms were like nails on a chalkboard. One day, we were all called into a meeting by HR. They informed us that security had been concerned about potential fire hazards in the building. Bob was practically jumping up and down with glee, convinced they needed more drills because of his poor handling of a recent incident where he accidentally left a light on overnight. Everyone groaned, but went along with it. My blood started boiling when I thought about all the late nights I had spent trying to debug code while he sat in the conference room, looking like a villain from a bad sci-fi movie. So I decided to get back at him discreetly and cleverly. I needed something that would make me look like an employee who cares about safety, but would also wreak havoc on Bob's ego. I went home, rummaged through my garage, and found just the thing: a chemical fire suppression spray meant for commercial kitchens. The stuff was wicked powerful. Just one spray could knock out even the biggest blaze. I decided to replace it with a can of regular cleaner and label it safety first so no one would suspect a thing. The next morning, after the usual round of complaints about the drill timing interfering with our work, Bob called me over to his office. "What are you up to today, Dave?" he asked, his voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Nothing much," I replied nonchalantly, avoiding eye contact. "Just making sure our building is safe." He chuckled, but it wasn't a pleasant sound. "Sure thing, Dave. Safety first, right?" I nodded and left the office, heading straight to the supply closet where we kept all sorts of chemicals and cleaning supplies. I carefully replaced the can of cleaner with my disguised fire suppression spray and labeled it exactly as planned. The drill was set for 3 p.m. sharp. We were all in our seats, ready for a routine fire evacuation exercise. Bob was even giving some safety tips, his face a mask of exaggerated concern. "All right, everyone," he boomed over the intercom. "On my signal, we'll simulate a fire emergency and practice exiting the building quickly and calmly." I leaned back, smirking at how easy this was going to be. 3 p.m. ticked by, and Bob hit that button on his panel. "Fire alarm, everyone out now." The first thing I did, I pressed the spray's nozzle. A whoosh of air filled the room as it activated. Everyone froze. No one had expected a real fire suppression system to go off mid-drill. The sprinklers kicked in, the alarms screamed, and pandemonium erupted. "Dave," Bob barked. "What did you do?" I shrugged calmly, playing along. "You know me, Bob. Safety first," I said with a wink before quickly making my way out to the other employees who were now panicking. Everyone was running around, trying to find their way out. The sprinklers were going off, drenching everything in sight. It looked like a real fire drill gone wrong. By the time the security guard arrived, Bob's face was beet red with anger and embarrassment. "You're fired," he roared as I made my exit. The aftermath? Well, let's just say it wasn't good. Widget Corp was on fire both literally and figuratively. They eventually cleaned up the mess and moved me to a different department where I could actually do some work without being constantly micromanaged. Looking back, it was a small victory, but enough for me to feel better about that office. Let me know in the comments if you would have done the same. This was posted to our /pro_revenge. I'll never forget that day at our annual team building outing. We were supposed to bond and build trust, but my coworkers' trust in me was about to be tested, and not by me. It started innocently enough. Our company, Tech Giant Solutions Incorporated, had organized a fun team event with a treasure hunt theme. The idea was for us to solve puzzles and complete tasks, all while eating our lunchtime snack, glow-in-the-dark jelly beans. But the catch was that each bean contained a hidden note. The notes were meant to be clues leading to the final treasure, an extra hour off duty on a Friday afternoon. It seemed like a harmless way to engage everyone in a little friendly competition and build camaraderie, but behind the scenes, I had something far less benign up my sleeve. The day before the event, I decided it was time for some minor sabotage. I knew a few of my colleagues couldn't be trusted with our project's sensitive information, so I made sure to include one hidden note in each jelly bean I swapped out at the last minute. The notes were carefully written on tiny slips of paper and hidden inside the beans using an invisible ink that would only become visible under blacklight. The moment of truth came during the first challenge. As people gathered around the table with their glow-in-the-dark jelly beans, one colleague, Mike, grabbed a bean from his lunchbox with obvious excitement. He popped it into his mouth and said, "Wow, these are so yummy." But his eyes widened as he checked his teeth for any hidden notes. "Mike," I whispered conspiratorially, "you know what? You might want to check the back of your tongue. It's a bit darker than usual." Mike, still a little confused, inspected his tongue and his face drained of color as he read out loud, "You're going to be fired at the end of the week if you don't get this task done." He shot daggers at me, but I just smiled innocently. This wasn't supposed to cause that much distrust, but it definitely stirred some internal conflict among the team. The next day, during a casual chat with Sarah, my colleague who was also part of the sabotage, she overheard our manager speaking about restructuring and hinted darkly about possible layoffs. "You should probably work on your presentation skills," he had said, causing an uncomfortable ripple through the office that evening. Word started to spread like wildfire. Each hidden note I planted in those jelly beans brought out someone's darkest fears. One guy, Alex, found a note saying his recent leave request was suspiciously timed and would be audited by HR. Another, Rachel, received a message warning her about potential misappropriation of company funds. By the end of the week, everyone seemed on edge. On Friday afternoon, we had gathered for our final event, a scavenger hunt through our office. The atmosphere was tense as everyone tried to solve clues and avoid those pesky jelly beans. And then it happened, the moment I'd been planning for months. At the last challenge point, one team member, Sarah, found a hidden note that read, "Your emails are being monitored. Your performance is under review. Think carefully about your next move." Her expression was priceless as she shared the note with her team. In the days following the event, morale plummeted. Trust evaporated, and work productivity decreased exponentially. People were openly suspicious of each other, always double-checking their emails and actions. The office atmosphere shifted from friendly cooperation to a competitive jungle where everyone was out for themselves. The fallout was immediate and painful. Several key team members started seeking new jobs. Our project suffered in terms of quality and innovation. And then came the coup de grace, a mandatory performance review meeting with our manager. During this grueling session, most of my colleagues presented their resignation letters, citing lack of trust, poor working conditions, and even allegations that company resources were being misused. In the end, I won a golden opportunity to start afresh elsewhere. The betrayal wasn't personal, it was business. But as I left, I couldn't help but feel a bit vindicated. After all, those glow-in-the-dark jelly beans had served their purpose perfectly. Let me know in the comments if you would have done the same. And honestly, most of you watching right now aren't subscribed yet. If these stories are hitting, change that in one tap. Now, this next one is even better. This was posted to our /pro revenge. Let me set the scene. You see, I work at a medium-sized tech firm where we develop productivity apps for businesses. My job title is Technical Support Specialist, but let's just call me Alex. It's not glamorous work, but the pay is decent, about $75,000 annually. My boss, let's name him Mike, has been nothing but a micromanager and bully since day one. One day, during a critical project meeting with key stakeholders from our biggest client, my computer screen goes blank and everything freezes. At first, I blame the App Store's caching issues. But it soon becomes clear someone sabotaged the productivity tools we use daily for these meetings. Half of our team can't access their screens, emails stop working, and all hell breaks loose. After recovering from initial shock, Mike tells me to investigate. It's like he's not surprised. In fact, his eyes light up with a sick sort of glee. I knew something was amiss because my work laptop, which is usually a reliable horse, had been acting weird lately. There were some laggy moments and minor crashes here and there. The next few days are a blur as I try to get the app back online. Meanwhile, Mike keeps pressing me to deliver on time. The irony doesn't escape me that his own incompetence in handling the situation is the real issue, but he's oblivious. So, I decide enough is enough. I'm going public. I create a Reddit account with no profile picture or username, just anonymous user. In the post title, I write, "Sabotage Performance Reviews." Underneath, I tell my story, explaining how Mike has been micromanaging and undermining my efforts. I mention one particularly egregious moment when he accused me of not knowing the software inside out. Completely ridiculous given that I've spent years developing these tools. I then describe the exact moment things went south during the client meeting. I include details like timestamps and even quotes from internal memos where Mike made condescending remarks about my work. I use phrases like, "You could do it better," which clearly show his micromanagement attitude. It's a darkly satisfying read as I detail every instance of his sabotage and mine. Most importantly, I reveal the fake reviews that I anonymously posted to our internal app store. The screenshots are clear. One review says, "Terrible support, won't use again," with a 1-star rating. Another reads, "Alex is not even on the team anymore." The cringe factor is high as these reviews are entirely fabricated. After posting, I received several comments from other employees who recognize Mike's behavior and his attempts to sabotage my work. One employee even anonymously sends me an email detailing how he's seen Mike try to blame others for his own mistakes. This just solidifies that Mike deserves whatever comes next. A few weeks later, the company undergoes a series of internal audits. As it turns out, some of our app reviews were found to be fabricated by someone within the tech team. The auditor's report cites my account as suspicious and suggests an investigation into possible data manipulation and misuse of office tools. My boss Mike is called in for questioning. During his interview, Mike can't deny his involvement. He tries to play it off as a joke gone wrong, but I have emails from him, all filled with sarcastic comments about the app being overhauled because Alex clearly didn't understand how to use it. The evidence stacks up against him, and he's fired on the spot. The impact is immediate and profound. My work is finally recognized as crucial, and my contributions valued. Our productivity tools are back online smoothly, and our clients are none the wiser. I stay anonymous, but there's no doubt that Mike deserves every bit of the backlash he gets. So, let me know in the comments if you would have done the same. This was posted to our /malicious compliance. I worked at a mid-sized tech firm, Acme Innovations, as an IT specialist. We had a toxic environment with a boss named Mark who had zero empathy or professionalism. His antics were legendary, greeting employees with inappropriate comments and outright mockery. One day, I just snapped. The setup was simple yet effective. I bought a small, barely noticeable microphone online for $15 and installed it in my boss's office, ensuring no one would notice. Mark was an open book on that desk. He chatted freely about everything, from his golf game to coworkers' personal lives. I figured this would be enough ammo. My first plan was straightforward: record every day, then share his comments anonymously online. But as I set the mic up, I hesitated. What if it got traced back? That's when I made a decision. Leave it there for 2 weeks and gather evidence. The next couple of weeks were like waiting for a bomb to explode. I went in late every morning, setting everything up just right so no one would question why a new item was suddenly present. Mark seemed oblivious. He barely noticed the strange setup on his desk. But I knew it was there. 2 long weeks passed. On the last day, I decided to test my luck by taking quick recordings during my lunch break. It worked. I heard him in a vivid rant about a coworker's personal life and some really inappropriate jokes. Perfect, but still risky. I deleted those recordings and sat tight for another week, just to be sure. Then came the moment of truth. I set up my computer at home with some open-source recording software. It was simple, but it worked. I clicked start, took deep breaths, and watched as the audio began filling my screen. For 2 weeks straight, Mark's office recorded everything. His casual comments about coworkers' personal lives, his ridiculous golf stories, nothing was spared. The evidence was damning, and by the end of those 2 weeks, it felt like a mountain of proof to crush him with. I anonymized all the names and wrote them up in a detailed post on our /malicious compliance. I titled it, The Hidden Microphone. I included every single one of Mark's inappropriate comments, along with timestamps and descriptions of where they happened. It went viral almost instantly. The first comment was from a fellow employee who had been subjected to some of those remarks. She thanked me in the comments, saying she never felt strong enough to do this herself. More and more users chimed in, coworkers revealing how Mark's behavior had impacted them over the years. The posts were both heartbreaking and empowering. The aftermath was, well, let's just say it wasn't pretty for old Mark. Within days, he was summoned to HR. After a formal investigation using my evidence, he was fired on the spot. Acme Innovations implemented stricter policies around workplace behavior in light of this incident. I watched as their response became more professional and considerate. As for me, I got a promotion. The tech department recognized my initiative and hard work. But let's be real. Sometimes, it's not about career advancement. It's about knowing someone can't go through hell on your watch anymore. That feeling of satisfaction after posting that story was immense. Let me know in the comments if you would have done the same. This was posted to our /pro revenge. I thought, if I'm screwed at work, let me screw someone else first. My name is Mike, and I used to be the head of accounting at a mid-sized tech firm called InnovateSoft. InnovateSoft had everything, great perks, a cool culture, but also an even cooler CEO, Alex. The problem was, he thought he was God, constantly overworking everyone, including me. It got to the point where I couldn't stand coming into the office without dreading it. One day, just before Christmas, Alex announced they were doing some kind of internal audit. My heart sank. He knew exactly what my salary looked like. I wasn't going anywhere if this investigation went south. That night, I had an idea. I created a fake email from the accounting department, claiming that we'd discovered discrepancies in the financial statements. A whopping $500,000 was missing, no less. I then forged an audit report and sent it to everyone at InnovateSoft with a note demanding Alex step up for scrutiny. The next morning, chaos erupted. Everyone started asking questions. Some of my coworkers were visibly shaken, and of course, Alex was livid. He called me into his office within minutes. Mike, he said, what the hell is this? I just smiled smugly. Alex, I've been going through the financials like you asked for a long time now, and there are serious discrepancies. He threw a fit, but I kept cool. All right, bring up all the documentation so we can review it together, he growled. That's when the real show began. Over the next few days, we went over every transaction again and again. Alex grilled everyone, including some new hires who were just starting to get the hang of things. No one knew what was going on. They just had to go along with whatever I said or risk getting fired. Finally, after 3 grueling days, Alex finally called me into his office with a look that said he'd been thinking about it. All right, Mike, he said, I want you to conduct an audit of the entire company from top to bottom. If there's really as much money missing as you say, I'll find another way to use your skills. Sure thing, Alex, I replied, just as coolly. The next month was a nightmare. I had to stay late every night, digging into bank statements, comparing receipts, and even snooping through company records that weren't supposed to be mine. My coworkers started whispering behind my back, wondering if they should be on my good side or not. But Alex's paranoia didn't stop there. He brought in outside auditors who kept me out of the loop. Everyone was walking on eggshells around each other. People were quitting left and right because no one wanted to risk getting caught up in this mess. After all that, we finally concluded everything was fine. No discrepancies at all, $500,000 or otherwise. I went back to my desk, satisfied with the chaos I'd created. Alex looked at me for a long moment before turning and walking away, muttering something under his breath. The real kicker came later that week when InnovateSoft laid off 25% of its workforce, including several departments where they said there were cost-saving measures. It was clear to everyone that these so-called cuts were payback for those whispers and tensions I created. Mike, I got a bigger bonus than usual that year, but the satisfaction? Priceless. Let me know in the comments if you would have done the same. This was posted to our /bad bosses. From the get-go, I knew things were going south when my supervisor, Mr. Smith, started assigning more work than anyone else in the office. I never understood his beef with me, but his behavior was always a bit odd. One day, he called me into his office and informed me that due to budget cuts, my position would be eliminated. It happened so quickly. One second I was working on reports, the next I was packing up to leave. No severance package, no explanation. Just an abrupt end to a few years of steady employment. Naturally, I wasn't happy, but what could you do? I decided to take action and filed a formal complaint with HR. They listened, but nothing seemed to happen for months. Frustrated, I eventually escalated it to the State Labor Board. The process was slow, tedious, and very time-consuming. But by golly, they took notice. After 6 long months of paperwork and hearings, the case finally went to a panel. When Mr. Smith appeared before the panel, he looked like a deer caught in headlights. I had brought proof from emails, meetings, and even testimony from other colleagues who witnessed his unprofessional behavior. The panel sided with me overwhelmingly, awarding me a $50,000 settlement. Now, that's what they call closure. When Mr. Smith saw the check, he didn't exactly look pleased. I just stood there, feeling a mix of relief and vindication. That day marked the end of my time at that company, but it was definitely worth every bit of effort. I remember the moment when HR first contacted me about a settlement offer. I felt a strange mix of anxiety and hope. The legal battles were tough, but winning felt incredibly satisfying. It wasn't just money, it was justice. And while the whole ordeal taught me that sometimes you have to fight for what's right, at least I got my payback. Let me know in the comments if you would have done the same. If you're still here, you're my kind of person, so do me a favor and subscribe. Alright, the most satisfying payback is coming right up. This was posted to our /malicious compliance. The title on my screen read, Price Fixing, an open letter from an ex-insider. I had to pinch myself a few times. It felt surreal, like I was dreaming. Here's how it all went down. I started working at Acme Tech back in 2016 right out of college. It was the perfect place for a recent grad with my engineering skills, I thought. Little did I know, I'd be walking into something far more insidious than anything my professors could have prepared me for. My first day on the job, the senior sales team pulled me aside and whispered some words that would stick in my mind. Make sure to stay close to management. They're your biggest customers. I initially dismissed their advice, thinking I was being paranoid. But over time, those words rang more true than ever. The culture at Acme Tech quickly became about one thing: making money. Any cost-cutting measure seemed to be justified, even if it meant compromising on quality or ethics. One day, a few months into my tenure, a junior colleague named Mike, who shared an office with me, brought in a USB drive. He was all sweaty and flustered. "Check this out," he said. I took the drive and inserted it into my laptop. It contained dozens of emails, internal communication between our management team about setting prices higher than industry standards. I read them and felt sick to my stomach. These weren't just random thoughts. They were strategic documents, outlining every step in raising our product's price without a trace of transparency or consideration for the customers. Mike and I exchanged glances. We knew this could be huge. That night, I decided it was time to act. I set up an account on Reddit, creating a new username, PriceMaster. I posted the link to the emails along with my name and job title, explaining what I had found. The post went viral almost immediately, and soon enough, the media picked up on the story. The backlash from customers was intense. We saw our sales drop dramatically, and it wasn't long before the company's board met to discuss a response. Instead of denying or downplaying the accusations, they launched an internal investigation led by an independent auditor. It confirmed everything I had said. Acme Tech employees were indeed guilty of price fixing. The aftermath was chaotic but ultimately rewarding. The CEO stepped down, and the new management reshaped the company's entire ethical framework. Customer loyalty began to rebuild, and Acme Tech started implementing fairer pricing policies that would benefit everyone in the long run. It wasn't an easy decision to make public, but when you see something wrong and refuse to look away, it can lead to real change. Let me know in the comments if you would have done the same. This was posted to our /nuclear revenge. I've been in this company for 5 years, working as a senior software engineer at Fusion Genix, but it's been anything but a pleasant experience. My manager, Jack, has been nothing short of an abusive micromanager, always questioning my work and belittling me publicly. His tactics were so egregious that my colleagues often avoided him, muttering about how he's like a cult leader who preys on talent. One day, I had enough. I decided to document everything: his derogatory comments, the constant unreasonable demands, even his personal attacks. I started logging everything meticulously. After months of observing and gathering evidence, it was clear that Jack was not just an asshole. He was creating a hostile work environment, violating company policies. I approached HR with my findings, but they were useless. They defended Jack and told me to toughen up. That's when I realized I had a case for harassment damages. The legal process would be long and complicated, but I was determined to see it through. It started with consulting a lawyer who helped me draft a formal complaint letter to Fusion Genix HR. In the letter, I outlined every instance of harassment, backed up by timestamps from emails and Slack messages. It wasn't easy. I had to carefully select the most damning evidence without compromising my job or safety. After sending it in, I checked like a hawk for any retaliation from Jack. None came, which was both eerie and suspicious. Next, I scheduled meetings with lawyers to discuss how to proceed. We decided on a strategic approach: file a formal lawsuit against Fusion Genix under the guise of seeking an employment discrimination settlement. The legal fees would be costly, but the potential payout for harassment damages would make it worth it. The process was grueling. I had to go through numerous depositions, produce evidence, and endure Jack's denials. He tried his best to discredit my claims, but with all the documented evidence in my possession, we had a strong case. Finally, after 6 months of legal battles, we settled out of court for $250,000 in damages. The money was significant, but it wasn't about that. Winning this battle meant vindication for years of suffering. Jack was fired, and the company paid to settle all outstanding claims from employees who had filed similar complaints. The aftermath was surprisingly cathartic. I no longer needed to tolerate Jack's behavior or worry about my well-being at work. The settlement check arrived, and I used it to start a small business that focuses on supporting victims of workplace harassment. I've also become more vocal in online forums like this one, sharing my story to help others navigate similar situations. Let me know in the comments if you would have done the same. This was posted to our /malicious compliance. Let me set the scene. I've always been the go-to guy at Acme Tech Solutions. They had no idea what they were missing until I left, but that's another story. My job title was lead developer, and my salary was a healthy $120,000 per year. But behind closed doors, the company was systematically underreporting our hours to cut costs. The system at Acme was pretty simple. We input our timesheets every week, and they were supposed to be honest reflections of what I worked on: coding, testing, meetings. Sounds straightforward enough, right? Well, not for long. One day, I decided to do a bit of digging using some internal tools that weren't exactly above board. After all, if they knew how much they had been screwing us over every month, they might start taking us seriously. What I found was eye-opening. For weeks, months even, the time entries were being slashed, cut by up to 25% in certain cases. This wasn't just a one-off. It was an institutionalized scheme to save money at our expense. My department was getting gypped of hundreds of thousands of dollars over the past 2 years. I was steaming like a pressure cooker, and I couldn't take it anymore. So I decided to act. First things first, I had to prove their blatant theft. I started by collecting all the timesheets from my files for the last year. Then, using some old code snippets I had written, I compared them against the official records. Sure enough, there was a pattern of discrepancies, which only strengthened as time went on. Armed with this evidence, I approached HR, but their response? "We trust you guys," they said blandly. Not exactly the confidence boost I needed. So off to my lawyer I went. The legal process was slow and tedious, but when we finally got to trial, it wasn't just a matter of them saying sorry. It was about reclaiming what had been stolen. During cross-examination, I testified with cold precision. My story? Straightforward and damning. How Acme systematically underpaid their developers by hours, leading to massive discrepancies in our paychecks. The company tried to argue it was a mistake, but my testimony of meticulous records proved otherwise. They couldn't counter the facts. The verdict came down after weeks of deliberation. Acme Tech Solutions agreed to pay back wages and interest totaling $450,000, a whopping sum that, in one fell swoop, not only repaid all the lost hours, but also covered my legal fees. It was a sweet victory, and I even got a six-figure bonus for being an expert witness. As I walked out of that courtroom, feeling like $1,000,000 literally, I couldn't help but chuckle at how they had underestimated me, until it was too late. Now, everyone knew my name, and I didn't need to be the lead developer anymore. I just needed to be Acme's conscience. Let me know in the comments if you would have done the same. This was posted to our/bad bosses. I know you guys hate talking about work, but here's something juicy. My buddy Bob at Acme Corp let slip some secrets. So much for keeping it hush-hush, wrote user 42. Now, if I could just get through the day without my coworkers turning into a group of chattering magpies. But hey, sometimes you gotta take matters into your own hands. Let's set this up. Acme Corp was a medium-sized tech firm where everyone worked way too hard and talked about it way too much. Bob, our gossipy coworker, was the kind of guy who could make the weather sound like company policy. And trust me, his conversations were always just a bit too loud for my liking. I decided to take matters into my own hands when I noticed he had this habit of oversharing in the office lounge. One day, we started talking about that new client XYZ, someone we were really hoping would become a long-term account. Bob went on and on about how they were doing business with their old firm, but seemed open to switching over. Perfect setup. I casually brought up some project details at random intervals during our chat. Hey Bob, did you know they're considering moving their data storage to the cloud? I heard they're really excited about it. He nodded and said he knew all about it. I let that drop for a bit, focusing on other work stuff. Then, subtly dropping in more info. So, client XYZ is thinking of implementing new CRM tools. Did you know Acme's platform isn't exactly user-friendly? And there he was, spilling the beans, telling me every detail about their software preferences and what features they were looking for. By the end of the conversation, I had a comprehensive list of their needs and pain points. Bob, I said casually, it sounds like client XYZ is really interested in Acme's solution to streamline their workflow. He replied, yeah, exactly. They're so frustrated with their current system it's crazy. But hey, change can be tough. The plan was set. I would use this info to outshine Bob in our pitch, and maybe even steal the contract from under his nose. After work that day, I sent an email to my boss and the sales team. We should really focus on selling Acme's platform to client XYZ. Their current system is clearly outdated, and they seem ready for a change. By the time it was ready for Bob to see, he hadn't even realized what he'd given away. The meeting with client XYZ went smoothly. I pitched our solution with all the data from Bob's own mouth. They were convinced in no time. The contract was signed 2 weeks later, and Acme Corp got their biggest deal yet. Bob tried to brush it off, but everyone knew he had slipped up. He was transferred out of the office lounge and into a more solitary role as an intern on a different floor. Talk about a 180-degree turn. It's not like I did anything wrong. Just took advantage of a loose-lipped coworker. But hey, the boss always likes to see results. And in this case, the results were massive. Sometimes, you gotta step outside your comfort zone for the win. Let me know in the comments if you would have done the same. Quick reminder to smash that subscribe button if you want more stories like this every week. Okay, trust me, it's about to get so much worse for them. This was posted to our/pro revenge. A few weeks back, I stumbled upon an opportunity that seemed tailor-made for someone with a knack for turning the tables on my workplace. Let's just say our human resources department wasn't exactly the most transparent bunch. I worked at TechCorp, a mid-sized tech company where, despite being a powerhouse in its industry, HR managed to keep everything cloaked in mystery. One day, I overheard whispers about this new initiative they were rolling out. It was an internship program, but with some extra perks. They called it professional development opportunities. But the more I probed, the murkier the picture got. The first clue came when a colleague approached me with a stack of contracts. These look suspicious, he said, tossing them onto my desk. Company policy says HR has to approve any new contract templates before they go live. I took a closer look. The language was convoluted and vague, more like something you'd see in a get-rich-quick scheme than legitimate business practice. It mentioned soft skills development, career readiness assessments, but there were no specifics on what that meant or how it related to the actual work they proposed interns would do. I decided to dig deeper, armed with my skepticism and a laptop loaded with evidence-gathering tools. The next day, I went through every HR policy document and found nothing about this new initiative. I started reaching out to ex-colleagues at other companies in the industry. After a few discreet inquiries, a pattern emerged. Multiple companies had similar professional development opportunities with identical language. Armed with evidence, I decided to expose it on Reddit. Here's how the post went down. Title: HR Shenanigans. TechCorp's new internship program is BS*. TechCorp recently rolled out this new initiative. It's called Professional Development Opportunities. These are not just internships, but they're using them to bypass our company policies. I went digging into their templates and found some red flags. They say it's for soft skills development, career readiness assessments, with no details on what that means or the actual work interns will do. I tried asking HR, but all I got was vague responses and excuses about how they were just implementing new programs. This isn't right. It's a sneaky way to get workers to sign up for unpaid labor without proper oversight. To top it off, these positions are being posted externally with misleading titles. They're called administrative assistant or marketing specialist, but no one gets hired. Instead, they just stay in the same department and do whatever HR wants them to do. I'm going to lay out some of the specifics I found. 1. Contract template. The language is vague and misleading. Nothing about job responsibilities. 2. Internship titles. They're using titles like marketing specialist when there's no such role. 3. Red flags. Unpaid labor, no oversight, bypassing company policies. If anyone knows more or can confirm this, please chime in. It felt good to lay it all out. The next day, the post started to gain traction. I got replies from current and former employees, confirming what I had already found. A few tech enthusiasts even offered to help dig deeper into company records. The plan was clear. I needed hard evidence. I spent days sifting through data from public records and internal documents. The key pieces of information fell in place. A sequence of emails, memos, and HR memos, all pointing towards a clear pattern of misconduct. I highlighted every detail meticulously, ready to present it back to the company. Finally, after weeks of preparation, I set up a meeting with senior management. The HR head was unimpressed, but not outright hostile, probably because she knew my reputation for finding these kinds of issues before. We met in her office, and I laid out all the evidence I had gathered. "Look," I said, handing over a folder. "Here are documents from our own records that support everything I wrote on Reddit." She flipped through them, reading intently. "This looks like a lot of work." She sighed. "You do realize we've been running this program for months?" "I did my due diligence," I replied. "And you were using it to bypass company policies. It's unethical and needs to stop." "All right," she conceded. "We'll review and make changes, but why bring it up now?" It was only after I started seeing the same suspicious patterns across multiple companies in our industry that I realized this might be more widespread than just us, I said. The next few weeks were tense as HR revised their policies and cleaned up their act. They finally released a statement saying they would no longer use misleading titles for these roles, ensure proper oversight for all interns, and review existing contracts to eliminate any ambiguities. Word of my efforts spread around the office. Some colleagues praised me for bringing transparency to our workplace, while others grumbled that I was just causing trouble. But I felt a sense of satisfaction knowing we'd cleared up some gray areas and brought HR in line with proper protocols. Let me know in the comments if you would have done the same. This was posted to our /nuclear revenge. When you're an HR rep at a nuclear power plant and your boss is making moves that make Chernobyl look like a safe bet, sometimes you have to take matters into your own hands. The guy, let's call him Rick. Rick had been my boss for 3 years now. He started as a lowly safety inspector, but his father was in the business, so he got pulled up the ranks. My job was to keep everyone in line, and I did it with precision until Rick's behavior went from pushy to outright unsettling. One day, while reviewing payroll, I found discrepancies that hinted at kickbacks. Then there were the late-night emails with personal phone numbers for clients, clearly inappropriate. And this was just the tip of the iceberg. I decided something needed to be done, but first, I had to gather irrefutable proof. I started meticulously documenting everything. Every offhand comment, every missed meeting, even those strange gifts he left on my desk. My spreadsheet became an obsession, rows and columns filled with dates, times, and descriptions so specific a forensic accountant would weep in admiration. Then came the moment of truth. Rick had just scheduled one-on-one meetings for everyone, promising to discuss their career growth. Instead, these meetings were thinly veiled opportunities for him to pressure employees into donating to his political campaign, all while threatening their jobs if they refused. I documented it meticulously, including a screen capture where he was seen making a donation himself. I saved everything on an encrypted external hard drive and a cloud backup. Then, I quit my job, knowing full well that the next step would be to confront Rick head-on. My email to him was short, but to the point. Attached are documents detailing all known violations of company policy and ethics standards. You have 24 hours to respond. The attachment contained pages upon pages of evidence, meticulously organized with timestamps and witness statements. Rick ignored me for a whole day. On the second day, he sent an email saying it was just misunderstandings and demanded I withdraw my claims or face legal action. Laughable. I replied, I've spent weeks building this case. It's more than enough to ensure your termination if this goes anywhere. He never responded again. The aftermath was a mix of relief and vindication. The company investigated my claims thoroughly and ultimately dismissed Rick for multiple policy violations. My actions forced him out the door, and his campaign donations were frozen by regulators. Now, I'm just an ex-employee who took back control. Let me know in the comments if you would have done the same. This was posted to our /malicious compliance. I just found out my boss had been screwing over clients behind their backs, and it was time to get some payback. The project we were working on with client XYZ had been dragging on for months, with deadlines not being met and revisions piling up like snowdrifts in January. Boss Bob seemed more interested in sipping his latte than in delivering results. One day I heard him telling HR Lisa about needing a flexible way to handle the client's budget issues, which sounded suspiciously vague. So when our next client meeting was scheduled, I decided to play it cool on the outside but record everything on my phone. That's right, secretly recording a business meeting in this day and age? As you might imagine, there were some complications. The agenda looked innocuous enough: status update, budget constraints, and strategy discussion. But as soon as we sat down, Boss Bob launched into a rant about how the client was not understanding the value proposition, implying they didn't recognize his genius. Meanwhile, Lisa threw in a few veiled references to budget cuts. I started tapping my phone discreetly under the table while nodding along innocently. That's great, Bob, I said politely when he asked for input, but then quickly added a soft, but as I hit record. But we can't just ignore their feedback, right? We need to be transparent. I had to be careful. The trick was to stay in character while gathering intel. After an hour of listening, I had enough recordings to show that Boss Bob and Lisa were trying to nickel and dime our client out of significant profits. At the end, as everyone started packing up, I approached Bob with a business card. Hey, did you happen to have coffee yet today? He asked, glancing at his watch. Actually, my coffee is on me today, I said smoothly. Thought we could catch up over drinks and discuss some of the issues from the meeting. We sat down in our favorite bar, and I pulled out my recordings as nonchalantly as I could. So let's be clear about what happened this afternoon, I began. The client is under a lot of pressure right now, but there are ways we can help without skimping on quality, if that makes sense. He looked sheepish. Yeah, sure thing. Thanks for bringing it up. We just want to find the best solution possible for everyone involved. I handed him a summary I had hastily typed and printed. I put some of our talking points together here. Might help you make your case with HR. You know, to keep clients happy, increase their trust in us. Bob took the paper, unfolded it carefully, and read through it quickly. Then he looked up at me. That's really helpful, he admitted. How did you get all this info? I didn't even realize there was a problem until now. I smiled innocently. You were talking to Lisa about making some budget adjustments mid-project. I just wanted to make sure nothing got overlooked or miscommunicated. We both want the client's best interests in mind, don't we? He nodded slowly. Okay. Thanks again for bringing this up. You're right. Sometimes things can get lost in translation. The next few weeks were tense but productive. Boss Bob and Lisa finally started working transparently with our client, and client XYZ was happy to pay the revised rates. I got a bonus for my trouble, too. But it felt good to know that when people try to play dirty games, there are ways to level the playing field. Let me know in the comments if you would have done the same. This was posted to our/bad bosses. So here's your story. I used to work at Megacorp Solutions as a junior software developer. You know the kind. Every day there were micromanagers, toxic leaders, and endless meetings that led nowhere. But what got me really going was when I found out they were using my company's resources for personal gain. One day, I stumbled upon an email from our CEO, David Klein, to a real estate developer. In it, he mentioned allocating company funds to buy up some of their properties at a below-market rate. The kicker? He even included the contract and all the details about the deal, like who would get what and how much profit they'd make. Now, I'm not saying this was a $1 billion conspiracy or anything, but even for a junior dev, it felt like seeing my company being systematically looted right under everyone's noses. So, I decided to take action, but not just any action. I had to show that if you misuse our resources, you'll face consequences. I started by making meticulous notes of every unethical practice I witnessed. Every time someone used the company car for a personal errand or took a long lunch break without permission, it went into my dossier. And let me tell you, there were plenty of those. For example, one day our head of marketing, Sarah Thompson, showed up at 10 a.m. but left at 2 p.m. She was always late, and I noticed she never did any actual work during the first few hours. But hey, who am I to say anything? So I just documented it, along with a detailed timeline. But the real game changer came when I discovered that our HR director, Robert Johnson, had been issuing sick leave for personal errands. He was always complaining about his backache and would disappear for days at a time, only to show up as if nothing happened. I collected all of this evidence over several weeks. Once I gathered enough data, it was time to make the first move. I went through company policy documents and found every possible regulation that could be violated by these minor offenses. Each one had a potential penalty, ranging from verbal warnings to formal complaints. First up, Robert Johnson. I submitted his sick leave abuse as a formal complaint under misuse of company resources. It was like writing a legal brief, detailing each instance with dates and times. After 2 weeks, HR gave him a stern warning. The guy wasn't happy, but at least we took a step in the right direction. Next, it was Sarah Thompson's turn for wasting work time. I documented her frequent lateness and lack of productivity. This complaint got sent to the HR compliance department, resulting in a verbal warning and a mandatory ethics training session. It didn't take long before she started showing up on time and actually working during office hours. Finally, there was David Klein's real estate deal. I had all the emails and contracts saved as evidence. I filed it with the CEO directly, along with every possible ethical violation listed in our employee handbook. The company's legal team took one look at my dossier and said they'd look into it, though they didn't actually do anything. The most satisfying part was seeing these unethical behaviors start to change over time. People who used to get away with minor offenses now had to be more careful, knowing I had a detailed record of everything. It wasn't glamorous, but it felt good to know we were holding our leaders accountable. One day, HR called me in for an interview about my work ethic and dedication. They said they wanted to recognize my efforts by promoting me to senior developer. I was surprised because this role usually went to people with years of experience, not a junior dev who was just documenting misconduct. In the end, it wasn't about the promotion or the perks. It was about setting an example that if you misuse company resources, no matter how small, there will be consequences. And in doing so, I help make our workplace a little bit better for everyone else. Let me know in the comments if you would have done the same. And that is going to do it for today's episode of Reddit Untold. If you made it all the way to the end, you are exactly the kind of person this channel is for. So do me a favor and hit subscribe so you do not miss the next batch. Drop a comment and tell me which story was your favorite and whether you would have had the nerve to do the same. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.